All right.
Hello, everyone, and very nice to see you. I am Giulio Prisco. I want to thank the very few people who showed up for this very first Turing Church meeting via Zoom. I hope to see more people the next time, but I'm happy enough with you guys at this moment. I'm going to use the format that I have in mind for future Turing Church meeting, which is a first half, which will be recorded and published on the Turing Church podcast, and a second half, which is not going to be recorded. For the first part, I will start by giving a presentation, the same presentation that I gave at the conference Transvision 2019 in London 3 years ago. It was a great conference. Unfortunately, the videos were not recorded. There was some kind of technical problem, I believe. So since I liked very much that presentation, I'm going to go through it today. So I have a video of it. Now, I'm going to publish this in both video and audio-only format for the Turing Church podcast. Those who watch the video will be able to see my slides. Those who only listen won't be able to, and that's why I will describe what I mean with the images that I'm going to show. Let me start sharing my screen now. And I will ask the people present to confirm that they are seeing it.
Yes.
Great. So, use my talk at Transvision 2019 in London, and the title is More Things in Heaven and Earth. And the other title is Gods by Any Other Name. And of course, since we were in London, I could only start with 2 quotes by William Shakespeare, which happen to be 2 of my favorite literary quotes ever. One from Hamlet is, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, that are dreamed of in your philosophy. This is for the first title of my talk. And concerning the second title, we have from Romeo and Juliet, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. And let me remember that the title of this talk is More Things in Heaven and Earth, a God by any other name. With this homage to William Shakespeare, let me move on and give you my very simple definition of transhumanism. It's very simple because I like simple things, or at least saying things in a simple way, as simple as possible. So transhumanism means using technology to improve the human condition is 1, doable, 2, good, both feasible and desirable. And, I think this is really common sense on steroids. On the slide, I'm showing a picture of me reading my first book, Tales of the Turing Church. And I'm wearing eyeglasses in this picture. And looking at the audience, I see that everyone, including me, is wearing eyeglasses. Well, what we are wearing is transhumanist technology. It is transhumanist technology because we are using a technology correction to do things that we would not be able to do otherwise. So this is transhumanism. And again, transhumanism is really common sense on steroids. Now, later on, I'm going to give you my definition of what I call transhumanism which is transhumanism on steroids. So I'm going to describe common sense on steroids and on steroids again, something elevated to a power and then elevated to a power again. These are my ideas. All the ultra technologies that we like to think about, indefinite life extension, super intelligent artificial intelligence, mind uploading, and all that, and even much more than all that, I think all that will be achieved eventually, but very likely not soon. So this aircraft that is going through a sonic boom, passing the speed of sound, this metaphorical aircraft will not fly soon. I don't think so. I would like to, but I don't think so. Oh. The singularity is the title of the book of Ray Kurzweil, last one, is The Singularity is Near. But no, I think the singularity is far. I'm afraid we won't see any kind of singularity in our lifetimes. I often also think that we won't see a singularity ever, because as soon as something begins to work, then it becomes yesterday technology, and everyone gives it for granted, so it's business as usual for everyone. I think that's more likely to happen than a hard take-off singularity. So the singularity is far, but Ray Kurzweil is right in spirit. He's right in the long term. So let's read one of my favorite sentences of Ray Kurzweil's book, The Age of Spiritual Machines. He says, so will the universe end in a big crunch or in an infinite expansion of dead stars or in some other manners? In my view, the primary issue is not the mass of the universe or the possible existence of anti-gravity or of Einstein's so-called cosmological constant. Rather, the fate of the universe is a decision yet to be made, one which we will intelligently consider when the time is right. And so I think even if Ray Kurzweil is probably wrong in his short-term predictions, he is very, very, very much right in his long-term predictions, which are that future humans, not future like next week, future like in many thousands of years or more, will re-engineer, remake the universe according to whatever desirability criteria we will have at that moment. This is one of my favorite quotes from Ray Kurzweil. Who else said similar thing? Arthur C. Clarke said, and everyone knows Clarke's third law, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. There is a variation of this note introduced by Michael Shermer, saying that any sufficiently advanced extraterrestrial intelligence or far future human is indistinguishable from God. And yes, in fact, magic technology and God are scientific concepts, not necessarily supernatural, not too metaphysical, not magic, but scientific. Something that we don't understand yet at this moment, but we will understand better and better and better until we understand these things well enough to do really magic things by means of them. Magic technology and God are scientific concepts. There is this vision from for our long-term future that was put in very beautiful words by Arthur Clarke in 2001. Talking of the makers of the monolith, Arthur Clarke says that they had learned to store knowledge in the structure of space itself and to preserve their thoughts for eternity in frozen lattices of light. Now they were lords of the galaxy and beyond the reach of time, and if there was anything beyond that, its name could only be God. How I interpret this vision of Arthur C. Clarke for our long-term future, using science that he unfortunately wasn't able to follow in the last decade, where things are really beginning to happen. This vision is the vision of humanity uploading to the fabric of space-time. It's a very modern concept. And Arthur C. Clarke was really a prophet. He was one of my heroes. So let me come to my definition of transhumanism plus, transhumanism on steroids. I'm very optimistic for the long term. And to me, transhumanism plus means using magic technology to become gods is doable and good, both feasible and desirable. Too bad for those who are only listening, because I'm showing a really nice image here of two human hands holding a galaxy information. And this is the magic technology that we will be able to master sometime in the future. Okay. Let me go back one moment. I will say one thing. I'm not calling myself a transhumanist these days. I have a long history in the transhumanist movement. Many transhumanists are my very good friends. But for many reasons, which I'm not going to discuss now, these days I prefer to use the term cosmist to define myself. And to me, transhumanism plus and cosmism are one and the same thing. Of course, cosmism has a philosophical history, because, as you know, it was a philosophical movement started in Russia between the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. And is a very modern philosophy in spirit. It was also the inspiration of the Russian space program. In fact, Konstantin Tsiolkovsky was a cosmist. And I hope the cosmist philosophy will become more and more popular. And these are my cosmic visions. We will develop space-time engineering and scientific future magic much beyond our current understanding and imagination. Space-time engineering and future magic will permit achieving by scientific means most of the promises of religions and many amazing things that no human religion ever dreamed. Eventually, we will be able to resurrect the dead by copying them to the future. This is part of a chapter called 10 Cosmist Convictions, which was published in a book written by Ben Goertzel titled A Cosmist Manifesto. Very good book. In these two paragraphs, I'm saying that we will remake the universe. and we will resurrect the dead. So the resurrection of the dead, which is the cornerstone of most religions that I know of, is something that will be achieved by humans in the future by means of super advanced science and technology. Technological resurrection. I must explain this, that I'm showing pictures of cats on the screen. I'm showing a picture of very cute kittens, and also an image of an old statue of a cat, which suggests to me the idea of quantum archaeology. Now, why cats? Not going to go into mathematical details of quantum physics here, but I guess many listeners have heard at least something about the Schrödinger cat, an animal which, according to some ways to interpret quantum physics, can be both dead and alive at the same time. This picture is used by all those who write popular explanations of quantum physics. So the concept of quantum archaeology is very much linked in the collective imagination to picture of cats. And what do we mean by quantum archaeology? Archaeology, like in reconstructing the past, but reconstructing the past well enough, with enough detail, to be able to reconstruct entire humans, or maybe animals too, that were alive in the past. We don't know anything about this yet, nothing. But we have some hints given by contemporary science that say that these super technologies, super science, will likely have something to do with whatever will become of the quantum physics that we know and love today. So quantum archaeology means using some kind of very weird quantum shenanigans that we won't even be able to start imagining now, to achieve technological resurrection and bring these cute kittens back to life. Perhaps the kittens died thousands of years ago, but we'll be able to use some kind of quantum fishing nets to go and fish them from the ocean of space-time. And we have these cute kittens back, and we will be able to have also humans back, everyone who ever died in the past will be resurrected, I dare to hope, by means of future science and technology, so much beyond our current understanding that we wouldn't even be able to imagine it. There was a really excellent book written almost 100 years ago by Sir James Jeans, a British astrophysicist. I'm going to read from this book. It's a book that I found in the library of my grandfather when I was maybe 10 or 11. It made an enormous impression on me. I read it in Italian translation at that time. I'm going to read from it. The outstanding achievement of 20th century physics is not the theory of relativity with its welding together of space and time, or the theory of quanta with its present apparent negation of the laws of causation, or the dissection of the atom with the resultant discovery that things are not what they seem. It is the general recognition that we are not yet in contact with ultimate reality. This is what Sir James Jeans said in 1930. we are not yet in contact with ultimate reality. And his words are still very much true today, as today's scientists understand. Now, to the list of James Jeans, today's physicists would add quantum field theory, the standard model, the theory of black holes, quantum matter, string theory, multidimensional realities. And future scientists will no doubt add much more to that. But here the concept is that we are not yet in contact with ultimate reality. And I do not think we will understand ultimate reality anytime soon. Perhaps never. In the sense that reality can be a fractal thing. A fractal, you zoom in and you find something, but then you zoom in more and more, deeper and deeper, and you find something new, and then you find something new again, with no end, like in the Mandelbrot set. I think this is quite likely. I mean, it's much more likely than the possibility to find a finite theory of everything that explains everything at the same time. Let's come to gods by any other name. I'm showing a picture of a cloud, a picture of a giant cloud that looks like a person with open arms. And this is the mental picture I have in mind when I try to begin imagining scientific conceptions of God. It's not literally a cloud, it's not literally a man in the sky, of course, but these are all nice pictures to have in mind. And these new scientifically inspired concept of gods are the intersections between transhumanism and religion, which are discussed by some groups and community, like this Turing Church, but also the Christian Transhumanist Association and the Mormon Transhumanist Association. I'm going to read the web URLs of these organizations. Turing Church is turingchurch.com, not .net, as I wrote in this slide, because that was the old website. The current website is called turingchurch.com. Then Christian Transhumanism, in one word, .org. And the Mormon Transhumanist Association is transfigurism.org. And I would like to invite all listeners to visit all three websites. So let's go through some concepts of gods, or God by any other name. First, we have the good old simulation hypothesis. The idea that, explaining it in extremely oversimplified terms, the idea that we are living in some kind of video game. Of course, it's much more complicated than that. I recently interviewed for my podcast Ritz van Vierke, who is the author of 2 books on the simulation hypothesis, called The Simulation Hypothesis, the first, and The Simulated Multiverse, the second. Here he builds a bridge between the simulation hypothesis and the concept of many parallel worlds. I do recommend these books because they are, at this moment, I think, the best popular explanation of the simulation hypothesis. Here I'm showing a picture of a computer simulation of the universe. I mean, the very preliminary computing computer simulations of the universe that we can execute now. And also a picture of God as an old man who is playing a computer game, where the idea is that we are the inhabitants of this computer game. Now, I want to underline and really overemphasize the fact that the simulation cosmology is essentially equivalent to religion. I shouldn't even say essentially. The simulation cosmology is equivalent to religion because it is exactly the same thing expressed with different words. If we want, we can take any scripture of any religion and we can translate it word by word into the language used today to describe the simulation hypothesis, and the meaning is exactly the same. We can translate the simulation hypothesis into religion, and we can translate religion into the language of the simulation hypothesis without losing any meaning. For example, from an article written by Nick Bostrom in 2003, which was one of the first papers on the simulation hypothesis, not the first, I think the one who introduced the simulation hypothesis as we know it today was Hans Moravec, but Nick Bostrom was one of the first. He said that these simulators would have created our world. They would be able to monitor everything that happens here, and they would be able to intervene in ways that conflict with the simulated default laws of nature. An afterlife in a different simulation or at a different level of reality after death in the simulation would be a real possibility. It is even conceivable that the simulators might reward or punish their simulated creators based on how they behave. Now, this is just an example of the fact that all foundational concepts of religion can be found in a simulation cosmology and back. So my conclusion is that, simulation cosmology is religion, but you don't have to believe in anything supernatural, because there is some kind of natural explanation for all that. We don't know it yet, but there is some. You don't have to embrace the supernatural, and you don't have to give up science. But at the same time, if you want, you can still believe in whatever religion you were born in or you have decided to adopt, because it can be formulated in scientific terms in a simulation cosmology. I think this is a very powerful concept. We have some other examples of God by any other name. For example, the omega point cosmology of Frank Tipler, where the idea is that intelligent life in the universe will become the ultimate computer at the end of time, so powerful that it will be able to steer the universe in ways that allow the mind itself to continue to exist indefinitely. And among the ability of the omega point, it is the ability to resurrect everyone from the past. This is a nice concept. Then we have the idea of, which is another idea, a third mental picture of God by any other name, of self-consistent causal loops across time. Now, for those who are listening, is really too bad that you cannot see this picture because the concept is difficult to put in words. The idea is that we are here now, and we are evolving. We will continue to evolve, we will become more powerful, we will become more knowledgeable, we will become much, 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 much more. The concept is that the end point of this is God, but where does a causal loop come into play? At the end of time, God, which is an outcome of intelligent life, is so powerful then that God becomes able to intervene in the past. And so the idea is that of a self-consistent loop across time, where God comes into being at the end of time, but is also able to intervene in the very physical processes that caused the universe to begin existing a long time ago. So what is at the end is also the beginning. And this was put in very nice words by Olaf Stapledon, the legendary philosopher and science fiction writer, in 1948 in a talk titled Interplanetary Man that he gave at the British Interplanetary Society. He put it in very nice words, and also theologians like Wolfhard Pannenberg have retaken the same concept that somehow God is both the result and the primary cause of the physical universe at the same time. And God will become God because we are here and are continuing to evolve. And at the end, God will also steer the Big Bang in such a way as to ensure that God himself or herself will appear at the end. By the way, I gave you a quote of Arthur Clarke a few minutes ago, but another very nice thing that he said is that perhaps our role on this planet is not to worship God, but to create God. And this is a concept that I want to stress. One more example. We have this concept of brains in string theory. What are brains? String theory is a multi-dimensional theory of space and time. We have 11 or 10, according to different interpretations, dimensions of reality, not only 3 or 4, but 10 or 11. So within this multidimensional space, there can exist many 3-dimensional worlds like ours, 4-dimensional if you include time. And the best image to keep in mind is that of a soap bubble. In the image that I'm showing, I have a young woman who is blowing a big soap bubble, which is a world like ours that exists in a multidimensional reality. So here you can imagine something that is really an equivalent of the simulation hypothesis, which is the possibility for beings that exist in more dimensions than us, like those described, well, not really described, hinted at in the film Interstellar by Christopher Nolan. And they are able to create worlds like ours. So this would be a cosmoforming hypothesis, which, if you think of it, is really equivalent to the simulation hypothesis. In both cases, our reality is engineered by someone or something in another level of reality. Then we have ideas like the possibility that a God-like mind exists in the very fabric of space-time. Think of a neural network based on quantum fields, for example. There is some interesting recent research on that. And then, of course, there is the possibility that if the whole space and time are filled by a quantum neural network, then perhaps what happens in our own brains can also be seen as a part of this universal neural network. And so here we have the concept that we are small parts of God. These are not the only concepts of scientifically inspired equivalent of gods, but is an example. We can find a lot of this in the scientific literature. Now, of course, the scientists who write these things are not really free to use the religious terminology that I'm using, because they could be fired unless they have already won a Nobel. If they're young scientists, they must keep very, very, very far from anything that sounds like religion. They are forced to be politically correct by the establishment. Okay, we're happy that we can say whatever we want. Now, let me come to what I think is the most important final part of this talk. Here, I'm showing a picture of a young girl with fairy wings who is living in a fairy tale world. Is this wishful thinking? Many people ask, is it wishful thinking? Now, my answer is yes, of course. Yes, in capital letters, with many exclamation marks. Yes, it is wishful thinking. And what the fuck is wrong with wishful thinking? Everything that is worthy and good starts with wishful thinking. Here I'm showing a picture of the first plane of the Wright brothers, and I think just 1 week before their first flight, or maybe the few days, maybe even the same day, some very learned and very reputable scientists said that they would never be able to fly, and that the very idea of flying was wishful thinking. But well, no, it was not wishful thinking. Or in other terms, the wishful thinking was good because it was the wishful thinking to permitted the Wright brothers to create the plane. And wishful thinking plus hard work got us to the moon 50 years ago. Well, it was in 2019, and now it would be 53 years ago. But in passing, and in showing this image of one of the Apollo 11 astronauts walking on the moon, I can't not mention the fact that now the Artemis 1 mission of NASA is flying to the moon. This is going to be a test flight without astronauts, but in only a few years, NASA is expected to take astronauts back to the moon, this time to stay. This time we want to stay on the moon, we want to do it sustainably, and we want to start creating a multiplanetary civilization. And even in the press releases of NASA itself, which are usually not very visionary, these days you find things like we want to build permanent habitats on the moon, we want to go to Mars, We want to explore the solar system. Well, all these things were wishful thinking only a few decades ago. Some people still consider them wishful thinking now. And what's wrong with that? It is wishful thinking that makes us advanced. And so with this picture of people walking on the street, let me get back to Earth and discuss the relevance of transhumanism plus or cosmism to the key issues of the present. And really the most important point that I want to make is that today there is not enough wishful thinking. It's not that there is too much wishful thinking. The problem is that there is not enough of it. Many people are losing the sense of a wonderful, enchanted frontier. Many people are losing the sense of transcendental hope and meaning. Many people don't dare to hope in survival after death and therefore live in existential despair. And this is bad. Well, this is bad because happiness is good and despair is bad, of course. But this is also bad because without hope in survival after death, some could recklessly pursue very dangerous paths to immortality here and now. And the example that I'll make is, of these discussions about artificial intelligence, what happens if the AI becomes much smarter than us, and all that. In his book, Superintelligence, Nick Bostrom says that superintelligent AIs could almost certainly devise means to indefinitely prolong the lives of the then still existing humans, or helping them shuffle off their mortal coils altogether by uploading their minds to a digital substrate. What does it mean? It means that maybe we're not smart enough ourselves to find out how to live forever, like my friend Aubrey de Grey wants. But with the assistance of ultra-intelligence, artificial intelligence, we could do so. And so the result of this way of thinking is that some people could want to go ahead and create super intelligent AIs no matter what, as soon as possible, even right now. This is one side of the discussion. The other side is that, and here I'm quoting Elon Musk, superintelligent AI is the single biggest existential crisis that we face, and the most pressing one. I think the danger of AI is much greater than the danger of nuclear warheads. Oh, well. So two different points of view. How should we balance ourselves? I think, well, I must say that I don't take the idea of human-like or smarter than human artificial intelligence too seriously at this moment. I don't think it's going to happen that soon. I think we'll have to wait some more decades at least. But, I also see that we need a mental discipline to refrain from doing things that offer a very high reward, like immortality, but also a very high risk, like wiping out humanity. And I think hope in afterlife is our best protection against that. Because, if I think I will live again by agency of future godlike humans, then I'm less tempted to create a dangerous artificial intelligence at this moment to solve the problem of immortality for me. And I think this is an important consideration. So I'm ending this slideshow showing a picture of my book, Tales of the Turing Church. I'm showing a picture of the first edition of the book. Now, a couple of years ago, I published the second edition. And in this book, I talk very much, it's a pretty big book, I talk very much about all these things. And now, this is what I wanted to say. Let me stop sharing the screen. And okay, this was it. I thank you very much for bearing with me until now, and I really look forward to hearing your reactions to this.
Well, if I can go first.
Sure. Could you introduce yourself first?
Yes. So I'm David. I've been involved with the Turing Church for about 5 years now. And yeah, so I actually read the book. And I wanted to ask you, my question would be, what do you feel has changed since you first made this presentation? It's been 3 years. In many senses, the world has changed. You know, in political senses, we have a big, massive war going on in Europe. We have the coronavirus crisis. We have a different US president, all different space program plans. What do you feel has changed that pertains to the church itself ever since you made this presentation?
Essentially nothing, you know. So of course, a lot of things have changed, but you know, I haven't really been talking about things that are likely to happen in the next few decades. So that, you know, a lot has happened and a lot will continue to happen. We had the war in Ukraine, the year before we had the pandemic, and, you know, I'm not really a utopian. I don't believe that things will become beautiful anytime soon. I mean, we had the pandemic, now we have the war in Ukraine, and then we have something else, and then we have something else. And, you know, unfortunately, these are all facts of life that we have to live with. There will be always problems. Let me use the only short-term scenario that I have mentioned, which is that of spaceflight. It's something that can happen much sooner than artificial intelligence and mind uploading and immortality, becoming godlike and all that. This is something that can happen here and now. Now, of course, I do want things to advance fast. I was 11 in 1969. I'm 65 now. So I'm an orphan of Apollo. I have waited more than 50 years to see people walking on the moon. So, you know, I'd like to see astronauts on the moon next week, but that's not going to happen. They say now that it's going to be 2025. I think that's not going to happen either. 2028, maybe by the end of the decade, I want to see a moon base, but I think that's not going to happen before the end of the next decade, because, you know, things could go fast, but things always happen to slow things down. If it's not the pandemic, then it is the war in Ukraine. If it's not the war in Ukraine, then it's something else. Now, you know, who knows who the next US president will be and what the US space policy will be. Okay, there is Elon Musk, but we see that a lot of voices are attacking Elon Musk from many, many, many different directions right now. The Twitter thing and some thing that he says that perhaps he should not say, but, you know, all that slows things down. Elon Musk could take astronauts to the moon in a few years, but, you know, things always go much slower than expected. There is that intelligent thing that, you know, in engineering, you do 80% of the work in 20% of the time. but then you need the other 80% of the time to do the other 20% of the work. So things are never easy. You never advance steadily. There are always setbacks. There are always roadblocks. Then you need to go around. And, things don't happen that fast. So, I don't hope to see any of these things before I'll have to go to log off. Things will be slowed down by natural catastrophes, by politics, by war, and these are facts of life. But I do believe that even though things go up and down, if you take an average, if you smooth the high frequency variations out, if you do an average, things do improve. I mean, if we think of the world of our grandfathers in, let's say, in the 19th century, most children died. Most people died when they were very young. There were atrocities which were much worse than the atrocities that we see now. Now we have newspapers and television and social network. We immediately know when something bad happens on the other side of the world. But, these things also happened then and much more than now. Only they didn't have the internet at that time. They didn't even have television. So things are improving. And I am reasonably confident, no, I'm very confident that things will continue to improve. Not always, not every day, not in a steady and predictable way, but we'll have improvements in the long run, and it's going to be exponential. Not as fast as Ray Kurzweil thinks. And, the idea of a singularity in 2045 is bullshit, if you ask me. But, eventually, yes, things advanced exponentially. We are still in a very slow phase of the exponential, but things will continue to improve. And that things will continue to improve is really the foundation of my worldview. Now, there are bad things. The war in Ukraine is bad. Pandemic was bad. When these things will be over, there will be other bad things. These are facts of life, but the things that I've been discussing are oriented to the future, and these small-scale variations that we are seeing at this moment are smoothed out.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question, David?
It does, yes.
Other David, what do you think?
Yeah, I see the increase in the world getting better. I think there's a lot in that. Yeah, can I ask another question?
Sure.
As I've said before, I've read your book, followed through to the links and found you on social media. I've also had links and listened to quite a bit on the Christian transhumanist podcast and things from our friend there. My question, a bit more, almost like philosophical, is that if I've understood you right, sometime in the future, we don't know when, hundreds, thousands, millions of years, the idea is humanity will have reached a technological point to be able to somehow look back in time, find me, potentially, and copy me, and give me a resurrected body. Now, whether that's digital or physical, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but also I think my question is more about the continuity. I have a sense that I'm the same, the person that was me 30 years ago has become me day by day. And yet you're using the word copy. And that feels like, is that a different person, or will I, in the same way that my 30-year-old self became, after many years, my 40-year-old self, and then my 50-year-old self, and so on,
I see.
will I have that sense of continuity, or is that a completely different individual?
I think the word, I mean, a lot of people, actually almost everyone, have this reaction to the word copy, which I think is technically correct, but is not emotionally satisfying. So that, you say that you feel you are the same person you were 30 years ago.
I think I've changed.
Yes,
essentially. But there's a continuity.
Yeah, essentially.
That I became that person.
Right.
That person became me.
Right.
Yeah.
But as a matter of fact, you are not the same person you were yesterday, because today you have new memories, perhaps you have lost some old memories, some of your body cells are dead, and so on. So that, thinking that we are destroyed at night and copied back in the morning, I think is emotionally unpleasant, but I think it's technically correct. I think is that, when your consciousness shuts down to sleep, well, you still have conscious dreams and all that, but let's close over that. If you are destroyed at night and copied back in the morning, does anything change? I think no. You still have the memory of yesterday's you, and you feel a continuity with yesterday's you. Same with the version of you that existed 30 years ago, and same for me, and same for everyone. Thing is, I think it has to do with acceptance. The thing is that I feel a continuity with yesterday's me, which means it means that I'm willing to accept yesterday's me as my past, and I know that tomorrow's me will accept today's me as his past. So we feel continuity because we want to feel it. I haven't said this very precisely, I guess, but going back to the scenario of uploading to the future, the thing is that first, even if it happens in millions of years, for us, it will be, for us, from a subjective point of view, will be instantaneous. Is that like, what is that nice movie, Vanilla Sky? When, open your eyes and immediately Tom Cruise wakes up in the future. I think the same thing will happen to us. We won't feel the millions of years that have passed. I have been recently reading, and I'm going to write these things on the Turing Church newsletter and next book about physical theories that predict that even without technological intervention, this coming back in the future, in the very, very far future, will happen spontaneously by means of how the universe works, even without human intervention. And the same thing applies here. There will be continuity because, you have your memories, and you allow yourself to experience continuity with those memories. And if you think of it, is that we have the same concept in traditional religions. And this issue has been debated by theologians for centuries. I mean, in which sense is the resurrected you still you? In Christianity, you have the concept of, coming back to physical life in a new body, which is not made of the same kind of matter as the body we have now. And this is entirely different from me. How can he be me? The ideas, there have been many ideas. One, for example, is that the pattern that is our personality is held in the memory of God until God decides to wake us up and give us a new body on the day of resurrection. So these things have been discussed and continue to be discussed. I think they will always continue to be discussed. And at the end of the day, let's just ask the people who will experience resurrection whether they find anything God. There could be some kind of experimental proof on this. So imagine a teleportation technology like in Star Trek. In the show, they don't explain how it works, but I do imagine it's based on some kind of quantum shenanigans like Schrödinger cat and all that. The thing is that you are destroyed here and you are recreated there. So they, Captain Kirk and the other, would ask themselves exactly the same questions. In which sense the me who has been recreated here is the same as the me who was destroyed there? And I think it's impossible to give a consistent philosophical answer to this question. But we can we'll be able, if teleportation technology will ever exist, we will have a practical answer to that. In the sense that it's something that I do every time. It's something that I do every day, many times a day. So since it's part of my normal reality, I don't find anything weird with that. Just a part of the normal reality that I accept. Same as the reaction of our grandfathers to this internet online discussion we're having now. So okay, I see things on the screen, but in which sense are these people who live in different parts of the world, in which sense are they together now? Well, not in exactly the same sense of togetherness that our grandfathers had, but we are here. For us, it doesn't matter that much, does it?
That's right.
I think even though I'm unable to formulate a precise answer to your question, I think the answer is more or less something like this.
Yeah. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Is there anything else that you want to ask about what I said today?
You, David, you go first. I already talked to Julio sometimes, a few times. So, no.
I can't think of anything here.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's David.
I just have one final question, Julio, perhaps. I wanted to ask your views on, you're probably aware of this, financial news story about FTX, this big crypto bank repository that declared bankruptcy over the last week. This was a massive, company funding.
I just read a couple of headlines, but I didn't really follow it that much.
Well, the thing is,
I do know what it is, more or less.
Yes.
But well, for those who know, just explain it.
Yeah, but so basically, it was one of these crypto banks, right? So you would deposit cash, British pounds, US dollars, euros, whatever, into this company, and then you would be able to buy cryptocurrency of all sorts, Solaris, Dogecoin, whatever, Bitcoin, anything. And it went down because they were doing all sorts of crazy stuff with your money because it was unregulated, and it was a bunch of young people in Silicon Valley who had plenty of ideas. And one of these ideas was effective altruism. I don't know if you ever came across these people, Julio, because I have. I belong to an effective altruistic circle in Spain, and to me it was a very inspiring group of people. Even though now we know the whole movement was very much funded by these guys in FTX weren't all that good, but the idea is, they have this idea of long-termism, that everything you have to do has to be for the benefit of mankind in the long term. And I was thinking, that's not all that different from, the Turing Church concept of, we need to keep going one way or another, because in the end, as you said, if we keep progressing, we're going to get to this, ideal point within perhaps, in a short time, I don't know, couple billion years, we'll get to this point where we have full control of the universe and we can resurrect the dead, whatnot, the whole concept. So I wonder whether you ever thought of the connection between this long-termism concept and, the Turing Church ideas.
I think there is a very big difference. But let me say one thing on the crypto thing first. Of course, I have read some headlines. And a few years ago, I was very much into the crypto scene. I have made a living as a cryptocurrency journalist for years. I was one of the very few people I know able to make a full living writing as a freelance without leaving home. I'm very proud of that. I stopped writing about cryptocurrencies about a few years ago because it really didn't interest me that much anymore. I was one of the very first users of Bitcoin. I started mining Bitcoin in a few weeks. No, maybe the same week as the paper of Satoshi Nakamoto appeared on the cryptography mailing list. Alfine was a friend of mine. I know these things pretty well, and I still find them very interesting in a technical sense. When people start saying that these cryptocurrencies are the only important things, are the things that will save the world, I stop listening at that point. Now, coming to effective altruism, you described it in as the idea that you must do what is good for the future, right?
Roughly.
That's also my understanding of effective altruism. Now, you must do are words that I would never say. It's just not in my worldview. What must you do? You do whatever the fuck you like. The thing is that I don't want to receive orders from other people about what I must do. And I don't want to give orders to other people about what they must do. The world is a good place because, within some, unfortunately, inevitable constraints, we do what we want, and that is good. It doesn't mean that I can go in the street and shoot people. This is part of the inevitable constraints. But I am a libertarian in the sense that I want to see much less interference from the rest of the world into one's personal sphere. And I especially don't want to be told what to think. If you start telling me what I must think, then you're really not my friend anymore. And similarly, I don't want to tell other people what to think. Yes, I do think that the future is important. I do think that good things will happen in the future. Even that transcendental things like becoming gods will happen in the far future. And I do think that what we do here and now is instrumental to that. But what you must do, I don't want to tell you that. You must know that. What I can do is to offer my ideas for those who want to hear them. What I can do is to make sure that everything that I think can be found on the internet and in my books, but that's where I stopped. This is one reason why Turing Church is not a church. It's an informal group. I didn't even want to create a semi-formal, semi-official group like the Christian and Mormon Transhumanist Association. You know, they do it within an existing religion. I mean, what I think my ideas is a religion to me, but I don't want to make it a formal religion for other people. Because I don't want to tell anyone what to think. And similarly, I don't allow other people to tell me what to think. You see what I mean? Does it make sense?
It does.
Thank you.
Good.
Well, you know, it's been great seeing you today, and I do look forward to continuing these discussions in future Turing Church meetings. I hope you continue to come, and I hope that other people will come. I've been thinking of hosting a meeting every month or so, not in December, because in December, the Christmas holidays, and also I'm going to take care of the TerraSem event on December 14. You know, December 14 is the 50th anniversary of the last day humans have been on the moon. This event is going to be about space. We're going to have Michelle Hanlon of National Space Society. Many space organizations are going to be represented. And, you know, I do invite you to come. It's going to be a very interesting 3-hour event. So not in December, but starting in January, I will try to host a Turing Church meeting every month. With this formula. I mean, one half with an assigned discussion theme recorded, the second half not recorded, on Zoom or some other platform. I think for the time being in Zoom, but I'm very open to experimenting with other technology platforms. And, you know, that's it. All those who are listening, I hope to see you at the next meeting. Have published the Google Calendar of this meeting, so just stay tuned. And unless someone wants to say something on the record, I'm going to stop the recording now.
Go for it.
That's fine.
Thank you very much for listening.